Imagine waking up tomorrow and finding out that you own one of the world's largest seaports. Every day, billions of dollars in cargo pass through your property. Giant container ships arrive from every corner of the world, carrying everything from smartphones and cars to food and medical supplies. It sounds like the perfect investment. Global trade never stops, so neither should your profits. But that's not how this business works. Before a single container is unloaded, your port is already spending money. Thousands of employees, heavy equipment, electricity, maintenance, security, insurance. Every hour your port operates costs money. Every hour it doesn't operate costs even more. And the biggest threat isn't the ocean. It isn't the ships. It's the business hidden behind them. So if someone offered you a $10 billion seaport tomorrow, would you be buying one of the greatest investments on Earth? Or one of the most expensive financial traps ever built?
Owning a seaport sounds like something only governments or billionaires could afford. And for the most part, that's true. Building even a modest commercial port can cost hundreds of millions of dollars. A major international container port can require investments measured in the billions. But buying the port is only part of the investment. What you're really buying is something almost impossible to recreate. A strategic location, deep water access, connections to railways, highways, and global shipping routes. These advantages can take decades to build, and in many places, they can never be built again. That's why ports are among the rarest assets in the world. You can build another warehouse, another factory, even another airport, but you can't simply create a new deep water harbor wherever you want. Geography decides that, and geography doesn't negotiate.
This is why the world's largest ports occupy the same locations decade after decade. Once global trade begins flowing through a port, businesses invest around it. Warehouses appear, factories move in, rail networks expand. Entire cities grow around the waterfront. Over time, the port becomes far more valuable than the infrastructure itself. It becomes the center of an entire economic ecosystem. And that's what you're really paying for. Not the cranes, not the docks, not even the ships. You're buying access to one of the world's busiest trade corridors. But owning the gateway to global trade doesn't automatically mean you'll make money. Because a port isn't valuable simply because it exists. It's valuable only if it keeps the world's cargo moving. And that's where the real business begins.
So, how does a seaport actually make the world move? At first, the answer seems simple. A ship arrives, containers are unloaded, trucks drive away, the port gets paid. But that's only what people see. Behind the gates, a modern seaport operates more like a giant logistics network than a collection of docks. Every arriving ship triggers hundreds of coordinated decisions. Which terminal has available space? Which cranes will unload the cargo? Which containers must leave by truck? Which continue by rail? Which stay in storage? Every movement is planned long before the ship reaches the harbor. The surprising part is that ships spend very little time in port. Every extra hour at the dock costs shipping companies money. So the entire system is designed around one goal: move cargo as quickly as possible. Unload, sort, transfer, repeat. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
But moving containers is only one part of the operation. Behind every terminal are thousands of people working together. Engineers maintain the equipment. Dispatchers coordinate traffic. Security protects restricted areas. Technicians keep digital systems online. Customs officers inspect international cargo. If just one part of that chain fails, everything slows down. And that's what makes a seaport so different from almost any other business. It's not one company. It's hundreds of businesses operating inside the same ecosystem. Shipping lines, terminal operators, rail companies, warehouses, trucking firms, customs agencies, logistics providers. Each one depends on the others. If one stops, the entire machine begins to slow.
Most people think the cranes are the heart of the port. They're not. The real engine is coordination. Because the faster cargo moves through the system, the more valuable the entire port becomes. But even the most efficient port in the world still has to answer one question. Where does the money actually come from? Because moving containers and making billions of dollars are not always the same thing.
By now, owning a seaport probably sounds like owning a machine that prints money. Ships keep arriving, cargo keeps moving, global trade never seems to stop. So where do the billions actually come from? Most people think the answer is simple. Ships pay to enter the port. The owner collects the money. End of story. But that's not how this business works. A ship is only the customer you can see. The real business begins after it docks. Every container that comes off a ship starts a chain of transactions. It has to be unloaded, moved across the terminal, stored, inspected, loaded onto a truck or train. Every step creates another fee. By the time a single container leaves the port, it may have generated revenue several times. And multiply that by thousands of containers on a single ship, then by hundreds of ships every month. Now the scale starts to make sense. But container handling is only one piece of the puzzle. Sometimes cargo doesn't leave right away. It waits. Maybe the warehouse is full. Maybe the paperwork isn't finished. Maybe the customer isn't ready. For the shipping company, that's a delay. For the port, it can become another source of income. Because every extra day a container occupies valuable space, someone pays for it. And then there's the part of the business almost nobody talks about: the land. Some of the most valuable industrial real estate in the world sits inside major seaports: warehouses, distribution centers, fuel terminals, rail yards, manufacturing facilities. Companies lease this land for years, sometimes decades, because moving somewhere else would cost even more. In many ports, these long-term leases generate stable income long before the next ship even arrives. The business doesn't stop at the shoreline. Every container still needs trucks, railroads, logistics companies, distribution centers. The port connects all of them, and every new connection creates another opportunity to earn money. This is the moment where most people realize they've misunderstood the business. A port doesn't make billions because ships come and go. It makes billions because it controls everything that happens after the ships arrive. You're not just operating a dock. You're operating the front door to an entire supply chain. And businesses are willing to pay extraordinary amounts of money to keep that door open. But if earning billions were really this simple, every billionaire on Earth would own a port. They don't, because behind every successful port, there's a bill that almost nobody sees. And that's where this investment becomes truly dangerous. At this point, you might think owning a seaport means controlling everything inside it: the ships, the cranes, the workers, the cargo. But one of the biggest surprises in this industry is that the owner often doesn't operate the port at all. Think of the port as an entire business district. One company owns the land and the infrastructure, but many different companies run the businesses inside it. The owner builds the foundation, expands the terminals, maintains the roads, invests in new infrastructure, and plans decades into the future. Their job isn't to move containers, it's to make sure the entire ecosystem continues to grow. The day-to-day work is usually handled by terminal operators. These companies lease sections of the port for decades, sometimes 30 years, sometimes 50. They hire the workers, operate the cranes, unload the ships, maintain the equipment, and keep cargo moving around the clock. This creates one of the most misunderstood business models in global trade. The company moving the containers may not own the land, and the company owning the land may never touch a single container. Yet both depend on each other to make money. Without the owner, there's no infrastructure. Without the operator, there's no business.
A good way to think about it is a shopping mall. The owner of the mall doesn't sell clothes. They don't serve coffee. They don't run every store. They own the location. They lease the space. And they create an environment where other businesses can succeed. A modern seaport works in much the same way, except instead of retail stores, it's home to shipping companies, logistics firms, rail operators, warehouses, and manufacturers. That's why the world's biggest ports are so valuable, not because they own every business inside them, but because they control the place where those businesses have to operate. And when you control access, you control opportunity.
So far, this investment looks almost impossible to beat. Limited supply, multiple sources of income, a business connected to global trade. But every extraordinary asset comes with an extraordinary cost, because keeping this machine alive is far more expensive than most people ever imagine. And that's where the numbers begin to change, not when the ships arrive, but when the bills do. By now, owning a seaport almost sounds like the perfect business. Limited competition, multiple sources of income, a constant flow of global trade. So where's the catch? The catch is that ports don't just generate money, they consume it every single day, whether one ship arrives or 100. The bills never stop. The first expense is people. A major seaport depends on thousands of employees working around the clock. Crane operators, engineers, electricians, security teams, maintenance crews, IT specialists, dispatchers. Without them, nothing moves. And unlike many businesses, a port can't simply close its doors when demand slows down. It has to stay ready for the next ship, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Then there's the equipment. Those giant cranes that dominate the skyline aren't just impressive, they're incredibly expensive to buy and even more expensive to maintain. Every lift puts stress on steel cables, motors, and hydraulic systems. Salt water corrodes metal, heavy loads wear down machinery. Even a small mechanical failure can delay an entire vessel. And when a ship is delayed, the costs spread far beyond the port itself.
But one of the biggest expenses is something most people never think about: the water. Modern cargo ships are getting larger every year. To receive them, ports must constantly dredge the seabed, removing millions of tons of sand and sediment. Stop dredging, and eventually your biggest customers can't reach the terminal. Nature is constantly trying to close the gateway you've spent billions creating. And then there are the invisible costs: electricity, cybersecurity, insurance, environmental regulations, technology upgrades. Every year, ports invest enormous amounts of money simply to remain competitive. Because standing still in this industry is the fastest way to fall behind.
This is the paradox of owning a seaport. The bigger the business becomes, the more expensive it is to keep alive. Growth doesn't reduce complexity, it creates more of it. And yet, even after spending billions on infrastructure, hiring thousands of people, and maintaining one of the most complex machines on Earth, success is still not guaranteed, because history is full of ports that looked unstoppable until they weren't.
After everything we've seen, a seaport starts to look almost impossible to fail. The land is valuable. The demand for global trade is enormous. The infrastructure can last for generations. So how can a billion-dollar port become a financial disaster? The answer is simple. A port is only valuable when the world still needs it. And history has shown that even the biggest infrastructure projects can lose their importance.
The first way ports fail is by building in the wrong place. Because a port does not create trade. Trade creates ports. Investors can spend billions on modern terminals, massive cranes, and advanced technology. But if shipping companies don't choose that location, the infrastructure becomes an expensive, empty machine. The cranes are there, the buildings are there, the investment is there. But the cargo never arrives. And without cargo, a port is just expensive waterfront property.
The second danger is debt. Many large port acquisitions are financed with borrowed money. The calculation looks attractive. Buy a billion-dollar asset, generate stable income, use that income to repay investors. But the problem appears when reality changes. Interest rates rise, trade slows down, cargo volumes fall, revenue decreases, but the debt remains exactly the same. The port can still be valuable, the infrastructure can still exist, the location can still be strategic, but the owner can run out of money. A great asset with bad financing can destroy its owner.
The third threat comes from the world itself. Because ports are connected to global events they cannot control. Trade wars, economic crises, new shipping routes, political conflicts, changes in manufacturing. A decision made thousands of miles away can suddenly change the future of your investment. Then there is technology. For decades, ports operated almost the same way. Ships arrived, workers moved containers, trucks transported cargo. But the next generation of ports looks completely different. Automation, artificial intelligence, robotic cranes, digital logistics systems. The ports that adapt will become faster and more profitable. The ports that don't may slowly become irrelevant.
And perhaps the biggest lesson is this: the safest looking investments are often the ones people underestimate. A port feels permanent. The land isn't disappearing, the ocean isn't moving, but the economy around it can change overnight. A seaport is not just a piece of infrastructure, it is a bet on the future of global trade. And now comes the question every investor eventually has to answer. If you personally owned this billion-dollar machine, would the numbers actually work?
After everything we've discovered, we finally reach the question that started this entire journey. If you had enough money to buy a major seaport, would it actually be a smart investment? Let's imagine you just purchased one, a world-class container port. Purchase price, $10 billion. At first, that number seems impossible. But remember, you are not buying cranes, you are not buying containers. You are buying a position inside the global economy. Now let's see what that position can produce.
A large international seaport can generate revenue from multiple sources: container handling, storage fees, industrial leases, warehouses, logistics services, rail connections. Every part of the ecosystem creates income. A realistic annual revenue estimate could be somewhere between $1.5 and $2.5 billion. But revenue is not profit, and this is where many investors make mistakes. Running a port requires enormous expenses: thousands of employees, equipment maintenance, energy, technology, security, infrastructure upgrades, environmental requirements. After all costs are paid, a realistic operating profit might be somewhere between $300 million and $800 million per year.
Now comes the calculation. You invested $10 billion. Your annual profit is approximately $500 million. That means your estimated payback period is around 20 years. 20 years. And this is assuming everything goes according to plan. In the best-case scenario, global trade continues expanding. Your port becomes the preferred gateway for major shipping companies. Nearby businesses grow around your property. Automation increases efficiency. The land becomes even more valuable.
Your investment becomes a generational asset. But the realistic scenario is different. The port produces steady income. It remains valuable. It protects your wealth. But it probably will not make you rich overnight. Infrastructure investing is usually a game of decades, not years. And then there is the worst-case scenario. Trade routes change. A competitor builds a better facility. Debt becomes expensive. Technology moves faster than expected. Regulations increase. Suddenly, your billion-dollar asset becomes much harder to operate.
This is the reality of owning a seaport. The opportunity is enormous, but the responsibility is even bigger. Because you are not buying a simple business. You are buying a machine that depends on the entire world continuing to move. So, after everything, the question is no longer, can a seaport make money? Of course it can. The real question is, would a smart investor choose this business over everything else? And that brings us to the final decision.
After calculating the numbers, the answer becomes much clearer. Owning a seaport can create enormous wealth, but it is not the simple money machine most people imagine. You are not buying a building. You are not buying a piece of land. You are buying a position in the most complex trading system humanity has ever created. Every day, millions of decisions happen inside your investment. Ships need to arrive. Cargo needs to move. Companies need to keep trading. The global economy needs to keep working.
So let's score the investment. Investment potential, 9 out of 10. A successful port has something almost no other business has. A strategic location that competitors cannot easily copy. Once global trade flows through your property, that advantage can last for generations. Risk level, 7 out of 10. The asset itself is powerful, but the world around it can change. Trade routes, technology, politics, economics. A port can survive for a century or lose its importance faster than anyone expects.
Because owning a seaport means managing one of the most complicated businesses on Earth. Thousands of employees, multiple industries, massive infrastructure, constant investment. One mistake can cost millions. Profit potential, 8 out of 10. A great port will probably not make you rich overnight, but it can create something even more valuable: long-term wealth, stable cash flow, and control over a critical part of the global economy.
So, would I buy a $10 billion seaport? If I had the capital, and the right location, and the patience to think in decades, yes. But I would never buy one because of the ships, or the cranes, or the containers. I would buy it because I understand the real business. A seaport is not a place where ships arrive. It is a gateway that the entire world depends on. And controlling that gateway means controlling a piece of global commerce itself.
Because sometimes, the most valuable businesses in the world are not the ones that sell products. They are the ones that control the road everyone else has to use.